Let's dig deeper into Redux. Up to this point, we only dispatched simple actions. They only had a type, nothing else. In reality, you often want to dispatch actions that also carry an extra value. Let's say we want to add a new button to the counter component, which says increase by 5. We could, of course, also add a decrease button, but let's stick to the increase button for now. Now, even though it has this label, it of course only increases this by 1, because I still just call the increment handler here and dispatch increment. Of course, we could now go to the store and prepare our reducer for another action type, which is increase by 5, where we then return our updated state, where we increase the state counter by 5. But that's not scalable. We can't predict all possible values we might want to support. The counter, of course, is just a dummy example, but if you're using this in a real project, which we'll do later in the course, and you need to work with any user input, for example, you can't hard code those values here in your reducer. Instead, the action which we dispatch and which reaches the reducer often needs to carry extra data. So that, for example, we have an increase action type here, and that action type does not increase the counter by a fixed number, but instead we expect to get the value by which we want to increase from the action. In there, we could say that we expect to get the value property or have an amount property or whatever it is, and then we want to increase by that. That would be a reasonable expectation, and that's of course a very common scenario, hence Redux and React Redux supports it. Back in the counter, we can now add a new function here, the increase handler, and in there we again want to dispatch, but now the action which we want to dispatch will not just have a type, it will have one and the type is increase, but it can now also get an extra payload, extra data which it carries. For example, an extra amount property. And this property name is entirely up to you. It's your action, it's your action object. You can add whichever properties you want. So here I'll add an amount property and set amount to 5 here. Of course, 5 is therefore still hard-coded here in this function, but that's just a demo. Of course, this value could be coming from an input field. Here it's hard-coded, but now we can point at the increase handler here. Now we add this extra payload to the action, and in our store in the reducer function, when the type is increase, we do expect this amount field on the action. Therefore, of course, you need to make sure that the property you're accessing here on the action in the reducer has exactly the same name as the property you add to the action when you dispatch it. Otherwise, you won't be able to extract this data. Hence, now if we save this and reload this, we do increase by 5. But now this is very flexible. We can easily change this to 10, and for completeness sake, change the button text to 10 as well. And now we increase by 10. It works just like that, because now the reducer is dynamic. It extracts an action payload. And action payloads are very common, often needed, and as you see, it's super easy to add them. It's just an extra property which you add to your action objects.